The stars above Earth blinked like distant eyes, watching, waiting. On a quiet night in New Orleans, a boy named Elias leaned on the railing of his apartment balcony, staring at the sky. He felt a tremor, not in the city, not in the earth itself, but in the air, as if something colossal had shifted. Then, with a silence that terrified more than any scream, the first strike came. The alien ships didn't crash through the atmosphere. They shimmered, like molten metal folding the night sky around them. Cities across the globe lit up in bursts of blue fire, and communication networks shattered instantly. The Council, a coalition of interstellar civilizations, had declared war on humanity. They believed Earth was weak, disorganized, primitive. They thought humans would crumble like brittle leaves in a storm. Elias didn't think. He ran. He ran past crumbling buildings, past streets twisted into chaos. His sister Mara grabbed his hand. Her eyes were wide, her breath ragged, but her grip was firm. "We have to move," she shouted. Neither of them were soldiers, neither trained for war. They were just people trying to survive. And yet, as the world collapsed around them, something ignited in Elias. Defiance. The Council's ships were precise, surgical, and deadly. Lasers lanced the night, tearing buildings into ash. Yet despite their overwhelming power, humans, the very people the Council deemed insignificant, kept surviving. They barricaded themselves in subway tunnels, in abandoned churches, in hidden bunkers. And then the unexpected happened. The alien machines faltered, not because of superior technology, but because of unpredictability. A child threw a rock at a hovering drone, causing it to spin. An old man detonated a homemade EMP near a patrol unit, frying circuits and rendering weapons useless. The Council's ships were designed to calculate, dominate, eradicate, but they hadn't calculated human fear, ingenuity, or chaos. By the third night, governments had fallen. Cities had burned. Streets reeked of smoke and ash. And yet pockets of humanity fought back. There was Elias, who became an unlikely leader for his block of survivors. Mara, who discovered a strange instinct that allowed her to sense the drone's movement before they moved. Ordinary people, ordinary courage, extraordinary impact. Far above, in the crystal spire orbiting Mars, the Council convened. Ambassador Thalry glimmered in their translucent robes. "We underestimated them," they admitted, voice sharp with disbelief. Every calculation predicted immediate collapse. But the humans, they adapt. They survive. Another counselor, Zunkai, hissed, "This is unacceptable. Their resistance is illogical." Thalry's gaze hardened. "Perhaps it is time we reconsider our approach, or perhaps we will simply accelerate their extinction." Back on Earth, tension clung to every survivor like smoke. Elias looked at frightened faces in the tunnel. Mothers clutching children, old men clutching memories of a world now burning. "We're not alone in this," he whispered. "We may be small, but we are alive, and as long as we are alive, they cannot win." The Council watched, unable to comprehend the raw brilliance of humanity. A world without order, yet alive, vibrant, and unyielding. A species that fought not for logic, not for strategy, but for love, hope, and the desperate refusal to disappear. Above the ruins, the first human counterattack began, not with weapons but with courage. A small team of survivors, led by Elias, slipped out into the shadows using terrain, instinct, and unpredictability. They sabotaged a drone, rerouted power grids, and sent a simple but defiant message. Humanity was awake. Above them, the Council's spire flickered with disbelief. They had declared war thinking themselves invincible. Now, for the first time, doubt crept into their calculations. And doubt, they would soon learn, is the beginning of fear. Elias clenched his fists. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring. He didn't know if humanity could survive the next strike. But he knew this. They would not bow. They had been pushed to the edge, and in that edge they had found strength. The stars above pulsed in rhythm with the heartbeats of those still alive. Somewhere far beyond Earth's atmosphere, the Council realized a terrifying truth. They had made a fatal mistake. Humanity was not just surviving. Humanity was fighting back. The morning after the first strike, New Orleans was unrecognizable. Streets were rivers of ash and smoke. Buildings stood like blackened skeletons, and the air smelled of fire and fear. Elias and Mara emerged from the subway tunnels cautiously, eyes scanning the horizon. Every shadow seemed to pulse with danger. Every ruined building could hide death. Yet amidst the devastation, something extraordinary stirred. Humans, displaced, terrified, and broken, were not hiding. They were moving, coordinating, striking back with what little they had. Improvised weapons, stolen drones, and sheer ingenuity became their arsenal. Elias watched as a group of survivors overturned a supply truck to create a barricade, then used mirrors and reflective surfaces to blind a hovering drone. Mara's instincts guided them, predicting the enemy's movements before the machines even executed them. "They're learning," Elias whispered to Mara, voice tight with awe. "They adapt faster than we can anticipate." But it wasn't just survival instinct that made humans dangerous. It was hope, fierce and stubborn, that refused to die. In a broken courtyard, a woman cradled her baby while wielding a crowbar against a drone. Her eyes were wild yet resolute. "You think we're weak?" she shouted. "We're not." And for the first time, the council's perfect calculations began to fracture. Far above, the council convened again. The spire's crystalline walls shimmered with data projections, strike zones, human casualties, probability matrices. Every plan they had made was failing, unraveling in real time. Ambassador Thalry's voice was calm, almost eerily so. "They are unpredictable, dangerous, illogical." A younger counselor, Kirith, leaned forward. "They are primitive. They should have surrendered already. Their technology is nothing compared to ours." Thalry's eyes, pale and piercing, cut through the council chamber. "Primitive does not mean weak. We have miscalculated their resilience. Their will is extraordinary. It is a variable we cannot control." On the ground, Elias and Mara were leading a small team into the ruins of an abandoned school. Inside, they found makeshift weapons, canned food, and, surprisingly, a working communications transmitter. Elias's heart leaped. For the first time, they could coordinate, not just with their own group, but with other survivors across the city. "We can fight back," Elias said firmly. "We have to," Mara nodded. "We can't just survive. We have to be a storm." By nightfall, the first human counteroffensive had begun in earnest. Survivors coordinated traps, jammed drone signals, and struck at the council's supply lines. The aliens had expected submission. Instead, they faced cunning, chaos, and courage. Drones fell inexplicably from the sky. Patrols were ambushed. And every attack carried a message. Humanity would not be extinguished. Amid the chaos, Elias discovered something even more remarkable. Humans fought not as individuals, but as a network of hearts and minds. Strangers protected each other, shared resources, and improvised plans in ways that defied logic. Mara, sensing the drone's movements with uncanny accuracy, became a symbol of hope. Her instincts were no longer just survival. They were leadership. Above Earth, the council's confidence waned. Thalry's hands hovered over their console, tracing the patterns of human activity. "We believed fear would break them," they murmured. "We believed our power would overwhelm. But they are magnificent in their resistance." "They endure," Zunkai growled. "It is madness. They cannot possibly maintain this." "They will collapse." Thalry's gaze hardened. "Perhaps. Or perhaps we have unleashed something far greater than we anticipated. Humanity is not merely surviving. Humanity is awakening." On the streets, Elias and Mara watched the first victory unfold. A drone fell, sparks flying across the night sky. Survivors cheered in the rubble, their voices raw and triumphant. Elias's chest ached with exhaustion and with pride. Against all odds, against impossible odds, humanity had struck back. But even in the moment of triumph, a shadow lingered. The council had not yet unleashed its full force. More ships waited in orbit. More weapons, more strategies, more destruction. The humans had tasted victory, but the storm was far from over. And yet, despite fear, despite pain, despite uncertainty, something unbreakable glowed in the hearts of the survivors. Elias felt it, Mara felt it, the people around them felt it. Humanity, small and fragile, could endure. Humanity, against all logic and probability, could fight. And for the first time, the council understood the terrifying truth. They had ignited a fire they could not easily extinguish. A fire that would burn brighter with every act of courage. The city's skyline, once proud and glittering, now lay shattered, a jagged silhouette against a burning horizon. Smoke drifted into the night sky like ghostly fingers, and the echo of distant explosions was constant, a reminder that the council's war machines were never far away. Yet among the ruins, humanity's spark refused to fade. Elias moved with his team through narrow alleyways, their faces smeared with ash and grime. Mara walked beside him, eyes sharp, scanning for drones that might appear out of the darkness. "They're learning," she murmured. "Every time we fight back, they adapt." Elias nodded, his jaw tight. "So do we. And that's the advantage they'll never anticipate." Tonight, their mission was simple: infiltrate a supply depot controlled by drones and reclaim weapons and food for the survivors. But simple rarely existed in a world under siege. The depot was surrounded by hovering ships, their metal surfaces glinting in the orange glow of fires below. Every step was a gamble, every shadow a potential death trap. As they approached, Mara froze. "Wait, listen." Elias tilted his head. At first there was nothing. Then he heard it. A low mechanical hum, rhythmic, precise, but not uniform. It was the sound of the drones adjusting to human movements, calculating, but Mara had already moved. She darted forward, gesturing silently, guiding the team through a series of twists and turns that the drones could not predict. Within the depot, chaos erupted. Humans darted between crates. Improvised explosives detonated in bursts of flame, and drones faltered in the sudden unpredictability. It was not overwhelming force that won the battle. It was ingenuity, adaptability, and courage. A young man, barely 16, pressed a button that rerouted the depot's power systems, sending sparks across the floor and short-circuiting the security drones. "Got it!" he shouted, eyes wide with excitement and fear. Elias smiled grimly. "We're just getting started." By the time dawn broke, the depot was theirs. The survivors celebrated not with loud fanfare, but with quiet smiles, shared food, and the relief of small victories. Each success was a flame in the darkness, proof that humanity was more than a species. They were a force, unpredictable, relentless, and alive. Meanwhile, far above Earth, the Council's spire shimmered with tension. Ambassador Thalry stood in the observation chamber, hands folded, gaze fixed on the data projections. Every report confirmed the same uncomfortable truth. Humans were adapting, thriving, and countering attacks in ways that defied logic. Zunkai's voice was sharp, almost accusing. "We were promised obedience. We were promised swift surrender. Yet they defy us at every turn. It is infuriating." Thalry's eyes narrowed. "We declared war thinking we understood them. We do not. They are more than calculations. They are unpredictable, dangerous, and their unity is unlike anything we have faced." The Council's unease grew not only from human ingenuity, but from the intangible human quality they could not measure: courage. Elias and Mara had seen it firsthand, in the eyes of every survivor who faced a drone armed only with a crowbar or hope. Courage, they realized, was more lethal than any weapon the Council had deployed. Back on Earth, the survivors consolidated their gains. Barricades were strengthened, escape routes mapped, and alliances formed between neighborhoods that had once been strangers. Elias looked at Mara, his sister's eyes glowing with determination in the dim light. "We're not just surviving," he said. "We're fighting back and winning small battles. But we need more." Mara nodded. "We need strategy. We need to be unpredictable like a storm. And most importantly, we need to inspire others." As the sun rose over the devastated city, its light caught on the smoke and debris, painting the ruins gold and crimson. Amidst the devastation, human determination glimmered brighter than the fires. People were not only surviving, they were organizing, resisting, and reclaiming a world that had been taken from them. Above, the Council began to understand a terrifying reality. They had assumed superiority based on technology and numbers. They had declared war, confident in their calculations. Yet every human act of defiance, every unexpected strike, every small victory, was unraveling their certainty. And for the first time, a thought that had no place in the Council's logic began to creep in. Perhaps they had underestimated humanity not by a little, but by an entire magnitude. Elias and Mara walked through the ruins, holding the spoils of victory. Their people cheered quietly, a subdued roar of life in a dead city. The battle had been won, but the war was far from over. Yet in that quiet victory, in that stolen dawn, humanity had found a new truth. Fear could be faced, and even the impossible could be challenged. And somewhere above, the Council realized a truth that would chill them more than any weapon. They had made a fatal mistake. Humanity was awakening. The world was changing faster than anyone could keep up with. Every night brought new chaos, new danger, yet also new hope. In the ruins of New Orleans, Elias moved like a shadow, guiding his group through streets that were once familiar but now alien. Mara was close beside him, her senses alert, her instincts sharp. She could almost feel the drones before they appeared, a subtle hum vibrating through the ground, the air, the very bones of the city. "This way," Mara whispered, leading them through a narrow alley lined with rubble. "They're not expecting us here." The council had underestimated one crucial element, the unpredictability of humans united by desperation. Elias's small band of survivors had grown into a coordinated force. They scavenged weapons from fallen drones, repurposed vehicles into mobile barricades, and turned ruined buildings into fortresses. Every action, every choice was deliberate, clever, and, most importantly, unpredictable. That evening, they launched their boldest mission yet: strike a council communications hub perched on the edge of the city. If successful, it would disrupt enemy coordination and inspire other survivor groups to rise. The team moved silently, blending into the shadows. Drones hovered overhead, scanning, analyzing, but they could not anticipate chaos born of courage. Elias felt his pulse race, not from fear, but from determination. Every step carried the weight of the city's hope, the lives of countless survivors counting on them. Inside the hub, alarms blared as the survivors worked in synchronized precision. Mara guided them through hidden corridors, bypassing security systems. Sparks flew, machines whirred, and one by one the communications arrays went dark. Outside, drones faltered, disoriented by the sudden disruption. For a moment, the city seemed to breathe, a small victory yet profound. Humanity was not just reacting, they were shaping the battlefield. Far above, the council watched with increasing disbelief. Ambassador Thalry's translucent form shimmered against the crystalline walls. "They are coordinated," Thalry admitted, voice low. "They are clever, they are—" "Adapting faster than any species we have encountered," Kareth hissed, agitation dripping from every word. "This is illogical. Their numbers are insignificant. They cannot possibly sustain this resistance indefinitely." Thalry's gaze hardened. "You are thinking like scientists, not observers. We underestimated what cannot be measured: spirit, resilience, unity. And now it is turning against us." Meanwhile, Elias and Mara emerged from the hub as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the ruins in gold and crimson. Their team moved with quiet celebration, a mixture of relief and pride. Every small victory bolstered courage, spreading like wildfire among the scattered survivor communities. But amidst triumph, there was loss. A young boy, no older than Elias had been at the war's start, had fallen during the operation. Mara held him in her arms, tears streaking her soot-stained cheeks. "He believed," she whispered, voice breaking. "We have to make it count." Elias placed a hand on her shoulder. "We will, every step, every victory. It's for him, for all of them." As darkness fell, the city hummed with quiet energy. Fires burned, yes, but they illuminated human ingenuity. Traps laid for drones. Signals passed between survivors. Strategies whispered in the shadows. Humanity's defiance had become contagious. In orbit, the council convened once more, voices tight with frustration and disbelief. "We calculated their defeat," Zunkai snapped. "They should have crumbled. Yet they rise again and again." Thalry's voice was calm, cold, and terrifyingly precise. "They are more than a threat. They are a revelation. We have misjudged them." Gravely, back on the ground, Elias stood atop a ruined rooftop, Mara beside him, watching the fires illuminate the resilient city below. They did not have the luxury of rest, nor the comfort of certainty. The council's full force had not yet descended. The war was far from over, but for the first time a dangerous thought took root among the humans. Perhaps the council could be challenged. Perhaps they were not invincible. And perhaps, if enough hearts and minds burned with defiance, even the mightiest force in the galaxy could falter. Elias turned to Mara, voice steady despite exhaustion. "They think they can break us. They're wrong. They haven't seen what we can do together." Mara nodded, eyes fierce. "Then let them watch. Let them learn the cost of underestimating us." Above, the council realized the truth they could no longer deny. Humanity was not just surviving. Humanity was learning, growing, and defying every expectation. And in that defiance lay a spark, Small, fragile, yet impossible to extinguish. A spark that, if nurtured, could become a wildfire. The night was quiet, almost deceivingly so. In the ruins of what had once been Chicago, Elias and Mara led a convoy of survivors through streets lined with smoke and rubble. Their eyes, weary but burning with determination, scanned every shadow, every ruined building for signs of drones or patrols. This time the mission was not only survival, it was offense. They were going to strike a council resource depot on the outskirts of the city, a hub that supplied drones, weapons, and intelligence for orbital strikes. If they succeeded, it would cripple the enemy's operations in the region and send a message. Humanity would not bow. The humans moved like a single organism, coordinated and silent. Mara led the reconnaissance, her instincts honed sharper than any machine could calculate. "They're expecting a small attack," she whispered. "We'll give them a large one." As they approached the depot, Elias paused on the edge of a ruined overpass. The city spread below, a graveyard of concrete and fire. "Everyone ready?" he asked. The group nodded. Fear was present, yes, but so was resolve. Every survivor understood that this strike was more than strategy. It was defiance. Hope crystallized into action. The attack began with improvisation. Human-made EMPs and hacked drones disabled perimeter systems. Elias and Mara led teams through broken walls using shadows and tunnels to avoid detection. Sparks flew as machines faltered, metal groaned, and alarms blared. The humans moved with precision born from desperation and ingenuity. Inside the depot, chaos erupted. Survivors disabled weapons caches, rerouted energy conduits, and even managed to turn some drones against each other. A young woman no more than 17 rerouted a drone to create a distraction, laughing despite the fear in her eyes. "They didn't expect this," she shouted. By dawn, the depot was theirs. The operation was a triumph, but the victory was bittersweet. Some of the survivors who had joined the strike never returned. Elias held a small memorial, placing a burned photograph of the fallen on a cracked wall. "We fight for them," he said softly, "and for everyone who still lives." Meanwhile, the council watched the events unfold from orbit. Ambassador Thalry's translucent figure shimmered with tension. "They are not merely surviving. They are orchestrating attacks. They are learning, adapting, even predicting our moves," Kireth hissed, frustration raw. "Impossible. They are primitive. Their numbers are insignificant. Yet they turn the tide against our forces." Thalry's gaze hardened. "We assumed superiority. We assumed fear would break them. We assumed they would be predictable. And yet here we are. They are neither weak nor predictable. They are formidable." On the ground, Elias and Mara returned to their survivors' enclave. The night sky above was a tapestry of smoke and distant fire. Yet among the humans there was laughter, quiet celebration, and the warmth of shared survival. Each victory, each risk had forged bonds stronger than steel. Humans were no longer individuals fighting for themselves. They were a network of courage, strategy, and unyielding will. Mara placed a hand on Elias's shoulder. "This is only the beginning. They're going to strike back harder." Elias nodded, eyes scanning the horizon. "Let them come. We're ready. We've learned more in a few weeks than they could ever calculate. And we've learned something else." "What?" Mara asked. "That fear can be our ally," Elias said. "It keeps us sharp. It keeps us alive. But it won't control us. We control it." Above, the council struggled to reconcile their calculations with reality. They had assumed victory would be immediate, total, and inevitable. Yet humanity continued to rise from the ashes, unpredictable and unstoppable. Every strike against them forced the council to reconsider their assumptions, to question their strategies, and to fear what they had dismissed as insignificant. And fear, once seated, grew rapidly. Elias and Mara watched their people celebrate quietly, aware that tomorrow would bring new battles, new dangers, and new tests of human resilience. Yet they also knew something vital. The tide had begun to turn. Humanity was no longer waiting to be destroyed. They were shaping the battlefield, challenging impossible odds and showing the council that Earth was not a conquest to be claimed, but a fortress to be defended by hearts that refused to break. Somewhere above, the council realized a truth they could not deny. Their judgment had been fatally flawed. Humanity, small yet relentless, had begun to rewrite the rules of engagement. And in doing so, they were awakening something the Council could not measure, could not predict, and could not defeat: human spirit. Elias clenched his fists as dawn broke. "We're not just surviving anymore," he whispered. "We're winning, and the world will know it." The world had become a chessboard of rubble and fire, yet humanity's pieces moved with cunning, precision, and audacity. Elias stood on a scorched rooftop in what remained of Chicago, his eyes scanning the horizon as Mara adjusted the small sensor array they had salvaged from a downed drone. They were no longer just surviving. They were anticipating, striking, and outmaneuvering the Council in ways even the most sophisticated AI could not calculate. Tonight, they would attempt the most daring mission yet: infiltrate a central command hub the Council had established in a partially collapsed skyscraper. It was a hub that coordinated orbital surveillance, drone attacks, and logistics across half the continent. If humans could disrupt it, they could not only cripple the Council's operations but force the aliens into reactive strategies, a vulnerability they had never anticipated. "Are we ready?" Elias asked, voice calm but edged with intensity. The team, seasoned and battle-worn, nodded. They had learned to trust each other implicitly. Every step, every choice had consequences. Yet fear was no longer paralyzing. It was fuel. Mara's gaze lingered on the darkened skyline. "They've been overconfident. They think the humans are still weak. They've made a fatal error." Elias clenched his fists. "Then it's time we show them how costly mistakes can be." The mission unfolded like a symphony of chaos. Humans moved through shadows, slipping past patrol drones with hacked signals while improvised traps disoriented the Council's sensors. Sparks flew, alarms blared, and the humans pressed forward with relentless determination. Every maneuver was unpredictable, every choice adaptive. Inside the hub, Mara guided Elias's team through corridors lined with alien technology, their hands deftly manipulating systems they had never seen before. They planted disruptors that caused drones to malfunction and transmit false coordinates back to orbital command. Chaos erupted among the Council's forces, their once perfect coordination unraveling. Above, the Council convened in panic. Ambassador Thalree's translucent form shimmered against the crystalline walls, eyes fixed on real-time projections of the disaster unfolding on Earth. "They are not merely surviving," Thalree said, voice tight with uncharacteristic strain. "They are orchestrating failures within our own systems. They are intelligent, adaptive, fearless," Sunkai hissed, fury evident in every word. "Impossible. They are primitive, yet they expose weaknesses we never imagined existed." Thalree's gaze hardened. "We underestimated one crucial factor: the human spirit. They coordinate, they sacrifice, they adapt, and they inspire. We declared war thinking in terms of numbers, weapons, and logic, but they fight for something beyond calculation." Meanwhile, on Earth, Elias and Mara led their team to the final control center. With a combination of improvised hacking and sheer intuition, they caused a cascade of failures. Surveillance arrays went dark, drones crashed in the streets, and communications between Council units became garbled and contradictory. For the first time, the Council's forces were truly vulnerable. Chaos spread through the ranks, and humanity's counterattack rippled through the city like wildfire. Survivors cheered in hidden enclaves, emboldened by the sight of alien machines faltering, miscalculating, and ultimately retreating. Mara exhaled, eyes wide with disbelief and triumph. "We've done it. They've made mistakes, big ones, and now we can push further." Elias's voice was steady but resolute. "Every victory, every strike, every life we save chips away at their certainty. They thought us weak. They thought us predictable. But we're none of those things. And they've just learned the hard way." Above, the Council realized a truth they could no longer ignore. They had underestimated humanity on every level, not just in strength, ingenuity, or tactics, but in something they could never measure: courage, defiance, and the unbreakable will to survive and fight back. Thalree's hands clenched. "We have made a fatal miscalculation. Humanity is not merely a species. It is a force, a storm of spirit and unpredictability. And storms cannot be contained by logic alone." On the streets below, humans continued to move through the city with renewed confidence, their courage amplified by victory. Elias and Mara watched the horizon, knowing this war was far from over, yet feeling an undeniable truth: the Council had begun to falter. They had assumed superiority, only to learn that Earth's defenders were not to be dismissed. And somewhere deep within the Council, fear, foreign, unwelcome, and potent, took root. Humanity was no longer a problem to be solved. Humanity was a force to be reckoned with. Elias turned to Mara, voice quiet but fierce. They thought they could break us. They were wrong, and they'll keep learning that. Every time they underestimate us, it will cost them more. Mara nodded, eyes reflecting the fires of the city. Let them try. We'll be ready, and every strike we survive, every life we save, reminds them who they're really dealing with. Above the city, the Council could only watch as the humans continued to rise. They had underestimated the smallest, most unquantifiable element, and now it threatened to unravel everything they believed about victory, power, and control. Humanity was no longer just surviving. Humanity was winning. The skies over Earth burned with streaks of fire and arcs of energy. The Council, frustrated and desperate, unleashed their full might. Ships descended like a storm, weapons humming, energy lances slicing through ruined buildings. Yet amidst the chaos, humanity stood not as prey, but as a force defiant and unbroken. Elias and Mara moved with calm precision, leading teams of survivors through the ruins of a once great city. Their hearts pounded with adrenaline, yet there was clarity in every step. This was not just survival. This was the fight for Earth itself, for every life lost, every ruin reclaimed, and every human heart that refused to bow. Focus on the core, Mara whispered, pointing to the Council's primary command hub, a massive structure glowing with alien energy at the city's edge. If we take it down, their forces scatter. Elias nodded, voice steady. Then we give them something they'll never forget. Let's move. The approach was perilous. Orbital drones swarmed above, scanning for movement. Ground units patrolled with relentless precision. Yet humans, unpredictable and clever, found paths the Council could not calculate. They used shadows, reflected light, and the terrain itself to mask their movements. Improvised EMPs disabled the closest drones, while Mara guided teams to flank enemy patrols. Every step was a gamble, every decision a test of courage, and humanity passed them all. Inside the hub, chaos erupted. Humans fought not just with weapons, but with ingenuity. They hacked systems, rerouted energy flows, and turned the Council's own defenses against them. Sparks flew, machines collapsed, and alarms blared in a symphony of confusion. Above, the Council observed with horror. Ambassador Thalry's translucent form shimmered, tension etched into every movement. They are not just resisting. They are dismantling our operations, our control. Every move we made to dominate them has been turned against us. Zunkai's hiss was sharp, frantic. It cannot be.
They are primitive.
Their numbers are insignificant, yet they undo us at every turn. Thalry's voice was quiet but cutting. We believed technology alone would subdue them. We assumed fear would break them. But they are more than flesh and blood. They are courage incarnate. They are the storm we failed to anticipate. On the ground, Elias led the final strike. With Mara at his side, they planted the disruptors at the hub's core. Energy crackled, systems overloaded, and one by one the Council's machines faltered. The orbital ships, deprived of coordination, began to fall in chaos. A silence spread across the battlefield, broken only by the cries of relief and triumph from the survivors. Humans had turned the tide. They had faced impossible odds, survived unthinkable losses, and delivered a blow the Council would not forget. Elias looked at Mara, their eyes reflecting the fiery skyline. We did it, he whispered, voice heavy with exhaustion and awe. We actually did it, Mara smiled, a quiet, fierce joy. We did more than survive. We showed them what humanity is capable of. The Council's spire quivered above the planet. Calculations shattered, confidence destroyed. Ambassador Thalry understood the truth in their core that no machine could quantify. Humanity was not weak. Humanity was unpredictable. Humanity was unstoppable when united by courage and hope. And so the Council retreated, leaving the ruins of Earth in the hands of those it had sought to conquer. Humans emerged from the shadows, scarred but unbroken. Cities were devastated, lives lost. Yet a new dawn was rising, one defined not by fear but by resilience, defiance, and the indomitable spirit of a species that refused to be erased. Elias walked among the survivors, feeling the pulse of life that had survived against all odds. Children played amidst ruins, elders rebuilt with careful hands, and strangers embraced, bound by shared survival. Mara joined him hand in hand, and together they watched the sunrise. "They'll remember this," Elias said softly. "Every species, every civilization, they'll remember Earth fought back. They'll remember humanity." Mara squeezed his hand. "And every time someone doubts us again, they'll learn the same lesson. Never underestimate what humans can do." Above, in the void of space, the Council pondered the consequences of their fatal miscalculation. They had declared war thinking victory was guaranteed. They had assumed weakness where there was strength, chaos where there was courage, and in doing so, they had awakened a force they could not control. On Earth, humanity began to rebuild, scarred yet proud, battered yet undefeated. They had faced annihilation and emerged stronger, smarter, and united. They had fought not only for survival, but for the truth that the human spirit cannot be measured, predicted, or destroyed. Elias and Mara stood atop a hill overlooking the city. The sun rose, casting golden light across the ruins and the faces of those who had endured. "We are alive," Mara said softly. Elias nodded, voice steady and filled with resolve. "And we will remain alive, always." Humanity had faced the storm, stared into annihilation, and emerged victorious. And the universe, vast and indifferent, had been forced to learn one undeniable truth. Earth was not a world to be conquered. Earth was a world to be reckoned with, and the Council would never forget it.